Greetings, my dear viewer. This is a channel about marital infidelity and about the consequences if one spouse starts to cheat on the other. If you, as well as I do, support true family values and condemn cheating, then subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let's get started. Scarlett's excitement was palpable as she prepared for the evening ahead. This was her third date with Nigel, and every interaction they'd shared so far suggested tonight might be a pivotal moment in their blossoming romance. As she meticulously finished her makeup, a wave of anticipation coursed through her, bringing back memories of how their story began just a few weeks earlier. It all started on Rachel's birthday, a night that had been planned as a low-key celebration. However, the evening took an unexpected turn when two confident men approached their table, offering drinks and making their interest clear. A quick exchange of glances between Scarlett and Rachel led to a mutual agreement to entertain their new acquaintances. While Rachel joined one of the men on the dance floor, Scarlett found herself paired with Nigel, whose charm and impeccable manners quickly set him apart. They shared 4 dances, each one marked by Nigel's respectful demeanor and easy conversation. By the time the music ended, the 4 of them naturally gravitated to a table to continue chatting. Scarlett barely registered Rachel's animated conversation with her partner. Her focus was entirely on Nigel. Younger than her by 5 years, he was not only handsome and sharp, but also had a way of making her feel like the only person in the room. As the evening wound down, Scarlett's mind flirted with the idea of breaking her self-imposed rules about casual intimacy. But Nigel's thoughtful behavior surprised her once more. He ended the night with a sweet goodnight kiss by her car, politely excusing himself due to an early work commitment. He even insisted on covering both women's tabs before saying goodbye. Rachel, ever the free spirit, opted to leave with Nigel's friend, leaving Scarlett to reflect on her encounter as she drove home alone. Though exhilarated by the night, Scarlett couldn't ignore a creeping doubt. Nigel seemed almost too perfect. While he wore no wedding ring, a cynical voice in her mind repeated the familiar warning: a man who seems flawless might be hiding something. Still, she chose to dismiss these thoughts. Their connection felt genuine, and she resolved to see where it might lead. True to her cautious nature, Scarlett made Nigel wait 11 days before agreeing to a second date. During that time, he remained consistent, calling her regularly and leaving no doubt about his interest. Their next outing, once again accompanied by Rachel and Nigel's friend, took place at the same lively bar. When Nigel greeted Scarlett with a friendly kiss, they naturally paired off, their connection resuming effortlessly. As the evening progressed, Scarlett couldn't resist glancing at Nigel's left hand. Her heart sank when she noticed the faint outline of a missing ring. The words tumbled out before she could stop herself. "You're married, aren't you?" Nigel appeared momentarily startled, but quickly raised his hand. "I was married," he clarified. "We separated 6 months ago. The tan line's just proof of how much time I spend at the office." Relieved yet embarrassed, Scarlett apologized and sought to salvage the mood. She led him to the dance floor, where their chemistry reignited. By the end of the night, they were entirely engrossed in each other, unaware of Rachel and Nigel's friend leaving. Despite the magnetic pull between them, Scarlett held firm to her belief that patience would strengthen their bond. She let Nigel walk her to her car, where they shared a passionate kiss before parting ways. Over the next 2 weeks, Nigel's attentiveness only deepened her affection for him. He called her daily and sent thoughtful gifts to her office, including flowers and chocolates. While Scarlett reveled in the joy of being pursued, she delayed their third date for another 15 days, savoring the build-up. When she sensed his enthusiasm beginning to waver, she set a date, determined to rekindle their spark. Meeting at a new bar that evening, Scarlett and Nigel were finally alone together. Nervously playful, she teased him once more about his relationship status. The brief flicker of hurt in his expression prompted her to silence his doubts with a kiss. "How can I convince you?" he asked earnestly. Scarlett grinned mischievously. "Simple. Let's dance, and then take me to your place." Nigel's hesitation melted away, and he drew her into another kiss before leading her out. Meanwhile, at the other end of the bar, a man named Tom observed the couple with practiced interest. From their body language, he deduced this was their third date and that Scarlett had just signaled a turning point in their relationship. Intrigued, Tom decided to follow them, driven by his secretive and voyeuristic tendencies. Keeping a careful distance, Tom trailed the couple to Nigel's apartment. In the shadows, he watched as Scarlett's eagerness prompted Nigel to unlock the door quickly. Once they were inside, Tom moved to a vantage point near a window with partially open curtains. He began filming their passionate embrace, disappointed only by the lack of privacy that might have heightened the thrill of his illicit activity. As the couple moved to the bedroom without drawing the curtains, Tom adjusted his position for a clearer view. Suddenly, the sharp snap of a twig breaking nearby jolted him. He froze, scanning the darkness, only to see another figure stepping into the faint light. Recognizing the man, Tom whispered, "Hi, Greg." Startled, Greg crouched defensively and muttered, "Tom, you almost gave me a heart attack." "What brings you here, Greg?" "The same thing as you, Tom. The exact same thing. Found anything good?" "Absolutely. Incredible stuff. You missed the living room show, but now they're in the bedroom. It's happening again." "Got it on video?" "Of course. I can send you a copy if you want." "That would be fantastic, Tom." Greg leaned closer to the narrow gap in the curtains, a sly grin spreading across his face as he peeked inside. "Wait a second. I need to make a call." As Greg stepped away to use his phone, Tom shifted his focus back to the curtains, adjusting his camera for a better view. This was gold, he thought, one of the most remarkable moments he'd ever captured. By the time Greg returned, Scarlett had reached yet another peak, and Nigel was fully engrossed in their activities. Tom's camera recorded every detail with pristine clarity, the pleasure on their faces unmistakable. As Greg came back, Tom scooted aside to share the view, allowing both of them to document the unfolding drama. In hushed voices, they critiqued Nigel's performance with the air of seasoned commentators. About 15 minutes later, a thunderous pounding on the apartment door broke the quiet, the sound carrying through the building. They froze, watching as Scarlett and Nigel stiffened, their faces turning to confusion as they scrambled for their clothes. Nigel, struggling to pull on his jeans, was the first to leave the bedroom, heading toward the source of the noise. Moments later, they saw him hurled backward, landing awkwardly in the living room. A furious woman stormed into view, wielding a small baseball bat, and unleashed her rage on him without hesitation. Nigel's shouts reached Greg and Tom faintly through the window. Satisfied for the moment, the woman turned her attention to the bedroom. Scarlett managed to nearly shut the door, but was no match for her attacker. Forced back, she stumbled against the bed and fell onto it. The woman growled as she resumed her assault, her foam bat landing relentless, humiliating blows. Scarlett's shrieks intermingled with the woman's angry tirade, creating a bizarre soundtrack to the already outrageous scene. Greg and Tom exchanged glances, knowing they had struck gold for their archives. Despite the chaos, Tom noted that the bat seemed designed more for embarrassment than injury. Eventually, the woman seemed to lose interest and made her way to the front door. Greg and Tom raced around the building, eager to witness the next act of the spectacle. Greg reached the entrance just as the woman emerged, tossing something behind her as she stepped outside. "If your buddy John has any sense, he'll start running now," she shouted. Hearing a muffled reply from inside, she turned and marched back in. Scarlett took the opportunity to flee. Bursting through the door, she collided with Tom, who stood by the gate. Stumbling, she instinctively grabbed him for balance. Tom seized the moment, grasping one of her arms while slipping an envelope into her other hand. "Scarlett Brown, you've been served," he said with a smirk. "Your husband insists you return home immediately." Wide-eyed, Scarlett shoved past him and bolted down the street. Tom turned back toward the building, eager to see what else was unfolding. Greg ambled over, nodding in approval, Smooth move, Tom. Efficient. Yeah, her husband told me to serve her the second I had proof. Tough break for her. Things happen. Don't forget to send me that footage, Greg reminded him. At that moment, the formidable woman reappeared, striding up to Greg. Did you get what I needed? Sure did, Greg replied confidently. She cast a wary glance at Tom. Who's this? I'm not paying for 2 PIs. No need to worry, Greg assured her. We work separately. Tom's just here because he served your husband's mistress. Good. That saves me the trouble of hunting him down for the video, she said, before turning to shout into the house. Stay put, you idiot. You're not coming back home. Meanwhile, Scarlett continued running, slowly realizing the hours-long trek she faced to reach her car in her impractical heels. Returning to the apartment wasn't an option, not with that terrifying woman still inside. She fumbled for her phone, but found it smashed during the scuffle. Tears streaming, she clutched the envelope and hobbled into the night. It took her over 2 hours to reach her car. When she finally got home, confusion filled her. Why did her husband want her back? Wasn't he supposed to be away on business? Exhausted, bruised, and aching, she noticed all the lights in the house were on. Struggling with her key, she couldn't get it to fit. Her fumbling drew her husband to the door. He opened it, stepping aside as she stumbled in. "Why are you home?" she began, but her voice faltered as she noticed a stern woman rising from the couch. The stranger approached, her expression unyielding. "I'm Mary Vermont from Child Services. Do you realize how irresponsible it is to leave a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old alone for—" She checked her watch. 4 hours? She held out a document. "This is an interim order suspending your sole custody for 28 days, or until a family court overturns it." Scarlett stared at the paper, her legs giving way as she collapsed. Her husband shifted her onto her side, his expression one of disgust, as though touching something vile. A knock at the door broke the silence. Scarlett's mother entered, taking in the scene with a worried expression, but offering no help to her daughter. "Is it true, what you told me over the phone?" she asked. "Yes, Mom. Tonight was at least the second time she's left the kids alone. The first time I found out because the neighbor called me. Rita had a nightmare, and the lady next door had to comfort her until Scarlett got home past midnight. The neighbor stayed until she arrived, then slipped out unnoticed. She called me the next day. I coordinated with Child Services and set up this fake business trip." Mary added, "We confirmed she left tonight without arranging care. The children were safe because their father stayed nearby. I also hired a private investigator to follow her and document her activities." Scarlett's mother turned pale, absorbing the information. After a long silence, she said, "I don't think I can forgive her for this. I'm ashamed a daughter of mine would behave like this." Her son-in-law nodded. "Don't worry, Mom. None of this reflects on you. You are always welcome to visit your grandchildren whenever you wish. Their lives are about to be disrupted in profound ways, and having a consistent presence will be crucial for their stability. For the time being, she can stay on my health insurance, but she'll need therapy at the very least. I'm asking in advance for your understanding that I won't have much to leave her after the divorce is finalized. Every resource I have will be needed if I'm forced to reduce my working hours or bring in help to care for the children. Now let me help you get her into the car. Actually, before we go, can you confirm that she already has significant bruises on her arms, legs, and face?" "Yes, Alexander." Both women responded in unison. At the back of the courtroom, Scarlett sat motionless, her gaze fixed on nothing in particular. She tried to focus on the proceedings, but the weight of recent events consumed her thoughts. The lies and betrayals, coupled with the collapse of the life she once thought invulnerable, pressed down on her. The sidelong glances from her family, the cold indifference in her husband's eyes, and the suffocating sense of loss made it nearly impossible to maintain her composure. It felt as though the walls were closing in, her once stable world crumbling like sand slipping through her fingers. At the front of the room, Alexander sat upright, his demeanor calm and confident. A quiet air of victory surrounded him as his lawyer laid out the terms of the divorce, securing temporary custody of their children. Alexander, known for his stoicism, seemed transformed. Gone were the cracks in his previously restrained exterior. In their place was a man who had seized control of his life. This was not the Alexander Scarlett had manipulated for years. He was someone entirely new, someone renewed. While Scarlett's attorney struggled to salvage any scrap of her credibility, Alexander's expression softened briefly. His thoughts drifted to the confrontation that had changed everything. He could still see the shock and guilt on Scarlett's face as she attempted and failed to spin the narrative in her favor. With the truth finally exposed, there was no room left for deceit. A sense of liberation washed over him. The lies, the pain, the betrayal, all of it was behind him now. He was ready to move forward. The opening of the courtroom door pulled Scarlett's attention away from her spiraling thoughts. Her mother stepped inside, her face pale and etched with tension. Scarlett had clung to the hope that her mother's presence might bring some comfort, but the disappointment in her expression shattered that hope. It was clear her mother had known for a long time. The reckless choices, the infidelities, the manipulations. Nothing had remained hidden. The truth had surfaced, and its consequences were unavoidable. When the judge rendered the final decision, Alexander stood. His posture was straight, his movements deliberate, his pride evident. The judge's words faded into the background as Alexander turned to face Scarlett one last time. His eyes, once clouded by uncertainty, were now sharp and unwavering. The verdict had been delivered, and with it came the undeniable reality that Scarlett no longer had any hold over him. For the first time in weeks, a faint smile crossed Alexander's face as he exited the courtroom. Pausing briefly at the door, he gripped the frame, the weight of his victory settling in. He had fought for his children, for his peace of mind, and for the chance to build a brighter future. Scarlett remained seated, a broken shadow of the woman she once was. Alone in the courtroom, she was left to grapple with the magnitude of what she had lost. Her mistakes echoed in her mind, each one a painful reminder of the life she had destroyed with her own actions. When her phone buzzed with another notification, it only served to underline her isolation. The world had moved on without her. Friends, family, and even Nigel, whom she had once leaned on, had all drifted away. The carefully constructed facade she had maintained for so long had collapsed, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. Outside, Alexander was greeted by the warmth of the sun, a symbol of the new beginning awaiting him. The promise of a fresh start filled him with quiet determination. He had already begun to rebuild his life, finding solace in the laughter of his children, the simple joys of fatherhood, and the peace of newfound freedom. As he drove away from the courthouse, a deep sense of reassurance settled over him. His children would be okay. He would make sure of it. Back in the dimming courtroom, Scarlett remained where she was, the weight of her decisions and the depth of her solitude pressing down on her. The road ahead was bleak, filled with regret and loneliness. She had no one left to blame but herself. Meanwhile, Alexander's life grew brighter with every step forward, filled with hope and the certainty of better days to come. He had found peace, while Scarlett was left to face her reflection and the wreckage of the life she had taken for granted. My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you.